Good evening, everyone. Time for episode 14 of Curse Rage, part 1 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga by me. Continuing with the Rogue's End chapter from page 159. Just some notes about Curse Rage. Curse Rage took me about 10 years to write. I was definitely in a developmental period of my writing. I like how it came out, but I think after 30 years now of writing, if I rewrote the book, it would be entirely different. I've considered doing so, but I also think that would sort of ruin what the book already is. So I decided against it. So when you read Curse Rage, you'll see that the books that follow it, my writing is certainly improved, and you'll find some flaws. It's not a perfect work, but a lot of people still enjoy it. So I hope if you do pick it up, you read it, and I hope you have a good time reading it. Okay, so we'll continue from page 159, where we left off before. In the presence of Tarek Longstride in the Rogue's End Tavern. Tarek Longstride studied them carefully as he ate. So this is the group that I am supposed to lead to Nordtown, he thought. 2 foreign Halfar, a battle-scarred dwarf, a female fighter, and a gnome. It was a strange combination for a scouting mission, but then again, times were getting hard. Finishing the last of his ale, he rose and donned his cloak. Grabbing up his bow and quiver, he turned away from the group and surveyed the tavern room. Using his peripheral vision, he scanned the darker corners of the room, but those patrons seemed to have little interest in him. When he left the tavern for the greater darkness outside, his hands remained instinctively close to his sword and daggers. A good assassin would choose that moment of sudden night blindness to strike. Moving quickly towards his horse, he trusted in his hearing to warn him of danger. It would be several seconds before his eyes could adjust to the near darkness of early evening. Speaking to his mount in soft tones, he stepped into the stirrup and climbed into the saddle. "Let's go, Windrunner." He let his horse canter down the nearly empty streets in a wide circle, and finally back to Blarney Stables. Strangely, the casual observer could never be certain if Tarek led his horse, or if his horse led himself. Grog confidently led them back to his home. Although he rarely had such guests, it was not unusual for him to hold business meetings over dinner. He only hoped that any dangerous eyes that saw him would have just such an impression. Kaelor followed close behind them all. He kept an eye not on where they were going, but rather where they were coming from. Several times he felt that someone was shadowing them at a distance, although he could make out no details in the evening shadows. They arrived at the stables without incident and were surprised to find firelight emanating from within Grog's quarters. "I hope that's my boy Gareth," Grog muttered. But Gareth's room was inside the stable, so that he could keep watch over the horses. He rarely went into Grog's room alone. His suspicions rose when he saw the glint of steel through the window. Drawing his sword, he kicked the front door open. His 5 companions were wound tight with the anticipation of trouble. Bursting inside, he stopped abruptly, cursing himself for a fool. "Damn, Tarek, I should have known that you'd just let yourself in." "Didn't want to advertise," he said blithely. His bare feet were outlined by the firelight as he methodically ran a whetstone up and down the length of his sword. "A mighty comfortable place that you've got here, Grog. How much do you have to pay to keep from getting robbed in this town?" Ignoring his sarcasm, Grog went on to introduce his guests. "These are the scouts that you'll be leading out tomorrow. Kaelor Starseeker, Dartin, Leander, Carmen, and Kirkegg Porter." "Are they any good?" he asked, his eyes never leaving his sharpening project. "As good as they come. All of them have extensive experience fighting jackals in the Knoll Hills. Third Mountain, the same." "That's good enough for me. I'll lead them as far as they need. I've been as far north as the pinnacle of the Ogrfangs, and I know all of the lands surrounding the Elven kingdoms. Very good. The king is counting on the information that this mission will bring us. You'll start at first light then? I hope to be long gone before then. I'm getting a bad feeling about this town, and I think that it's best if we leave before sunrise. That's all right by me, Kalor said, confirming Tarek's fears. I'm up for leaving right now, Kerr said. It's like an itch that you can't scratch. It's settled then, Carmen said. We'll pack before bed and be on our way before the sun can tell anyone of our passing. Take care of them, Tarek, Grog said. That's my job, Grog. That's my job. Okay. The next chapter, Wayfarers Crossing. Now a party of 6. They rode their own well-rested horses. Tarek and Carmen rode in front, followed by Dartin and Leander. Kalor and Kerr wore smug expressions of indignity at being forced to ride on top of the pack horses. Ponies would have been much better suited for them, but time was now their greatest adversary. They needed the horses' speed. The day promised sunshine, which was a welcome change from the cold rain of their past journey. The road north was well-worn and easy-going. Several farmers and merchants passed them by, heading southward with their wares and fall harvests. Most of them were traveling to Khan's great marketplace, where they could get the best prices for their goods. By midday, the first signs of Wayfarers Wood could be seen in the distance. Several smoky tendrils from campfires rose into the sky above it. Riding ahead, Tarek stood tall upon Windrunner, whose black coat rippled with each fall of his tremendous hooves. Reaching the top of a nearby hill thick and green with hay, his sharp eyes examined the columns of smoke, but he found little to be alarmed about. It was probably a gypsy caravan. They often stopped in the wood during their yearly migration to the southern cities. There they would trade their skills and goods for those that they needed to survive the oncoming winter. What do you make of it? Carmen said, riding up alongside of him. There's at least 5 separate encampments along the road, probably gypsies headed south. Nothing to worry about if we keep to ourselves. We'll need to camp by nightfall ourselves, Carmen said. That should place us about midway through the wood. What do you think? We should reach the first branch of the crossroads by then, where the east road bends towards Lord Min's Mountain, and the northern branch heads on to Newfoundtown. There are many good places to camp there. Let's pick up the pace then, she said. I'd like to save a little daylight to get our gear straightened out. Remember this one thing, Carmen. If we get invited to a gypsy party, we are honor bound to accept. If we refuse, we will insult them greatly, and I don't think that we'll be able to talk our way out of that. Without further ado, he spurred Windrunner ahead and resumed his scouting position. When they entered the densely wooded forest surrounding Wayfarers Crossing, they found evidence of numerous campsites, both old and new. Most of the sites were unoccupied, but here and there, groups of travelers had made their camps for the night. Traveling on over rolling hills and small sheltered valleys, the group made their way along the northern path until it became too dark to travel safely. Kalor and Kerr were grumbling endlessly about the indignity of riding horses and the tremendous soreness that it was bringing to their backsides. I'll never be able to walk again, Kalor cursed, after this beastly ride. I'm just glad that my grandfather isn't here to see me. Imagine, a keg porter riding atop of a man's horse, his feet high up in the air without a decent thing to hold on to. It's not just a man's horse, Keg, Leander said. It's a Nagrum, and few finer horses can be found anywhere. Listening to the pair's complaints made leading the pack horses an even greater chore, but he was a patient man with a sense of humor. Nagrum schmagrum, Kerr grumbled. If people were meant to ride, then why did Moradeus give them feet? Looking for a suitable campsite, Tarek led them past a great festival. Just off the road, within a great clearing in the forest, several wagons surrounded a tremendous bonfire. Nearly 100 gypsies danced in a circle, arm in arm and hand in hand, to the tune of a strange accordion and tambourines. The road around the clearing and its surrounding pathways were completely blocked by parked carts and wagons. He tried to find a way around the gypsy camp to the east. They were almost safely away when they came upon a solitary gypsy relieving himself behind a wide willow tree. "Hail, travelers," the old gentleman greeted. "What brings you all to the crossroads in such a beautiful night?" "Just passing by on our way north," Tarek answered. Carmen and Dartin were now close behind him. "Well, surely you must camp for the night. It is far too dangerous to go on in the dark." "We'll be okay. We're going to bed down as soon as we find a good campsite." "Then surely you must join us. Tonight is my daughter's wedding, and we have planned a great festival for her. Perhaps you'd like to meet my other daughters. As yet I have 7 left that are unaccounted for." "If you insist," Tarek said hopelessly. "I insist," he said, clapping his hands together decisively. "Follow me, my friends. We have delicious food prepared and dancing for everyone. We always welcome such strong warriors as yourselves into our family." Leading them all to his tall and spacious tent, he encouraged them all to tether their horses by his own and then led them inside. They were immediately tended to by his children and encouraged to sit among his family for their feast. Exotic and spicy dishes were served, and plenty of strong wine as well. His unwed daughters danced before them for entertainment. Their faces were partially veiled by colorful scarves, and their bodies were ornamented with exquisite silk. When the dinner was done, they were all urged to join in the great dance outside. "How lucky we are," Dartin thought, "to have stumbled upon a Kalderash voivode chieftain as he was relieving himself of too much wine." "With our luck," Kalor mused, "this man is the very gypsy king of legend." For the moment that was just fine. However, for the gypsy's drink was as good as any that he'd ever tasted. The Kalderash were known for their talented metalsmiths, even more so than any of the other gypsy tribes, but they also had a fair number of entertainers among them as well. Their music was as varied as the seasons, and it shifted from subtle chords to climactic crescendos, often ending in a crash of tambourines and then an uncanny silence. The night wore on, and it seemed that the festivities would last forever. But as swiftly as the music had begun, it ended, and it seemed to the gypsies that it was no surprise. Standing in the opening of the voivode's tent was an elderly but as yet upright woman. About her arms were many bands of gold, and about her throat was a necklace of incredible beauty, a large gem like a tiger's eye at its center. Her long half-gray hair was curled in a long braid that descended to her waistline, and she moved toward the great fire with the grace of royalty. Gesturing for the people of the camp to gather around her, she clapped her hands and called for silence. "Tonight is a very special night among the Kalderash people," she said with pride. "On this sacred harvest evening, 2 people shall be joined as one. Their blood shall mix, and all shall benefit from this new marriage. Tonight we witness the joining of Istvan Nagy and his new wife, Almira Ivangi, and as they are wed, so too are their families. Istvan's father has paid the bride's price to the Ivangi family, and their union is thus blessed. Come forth," she commanded, and the young man and woman stepped forward from among the circle around her. Kneeling before her, side by side, they waited silently with their heads bowed in respect. "Give me your hands, my children," she said. Wrapping a brilliantly colored sash about their wrists, she fastened their hands together, left hand to left hand, their palms facing sideward to symbolize the equal partnership of a gypsy marriage. As the golden sash of the Kalderash joins these 2 hands together, may their hearts be forever one. May this marriage dance last forever within their hearts. Clapping her hands in a rousing rhythm, she withdrew, urging all those who were witness to join her. And then the newlywed couple began their first dance as husband and wife. Once again, the band began to play, and the glade was soon filled with dancing partners. Dartin and Leander were quickly scooped up by the chief's daughters and gleefully whirled about to the music. Only the wine's effect was keeping exhaustion from claiming their legs. Kaylor and Kerr had already succumbed to the after effects of too much food and too much wine. Resting back to back against a nearby tree, their last conversation had covered the inherent differences between gypsy, gnomish, and dwarven spirits. Each of them was certain that their own wine was best, but neither of them could argue with the quality of the gypsy's own. After the dancing and merriment had begun to subside, the married couple slipped away to their private tent, and one by one the remaining couples did the same. Somehow D'Artagnan and Leander had managed to escape possible engagement, while maintaining the honor of the voivode's daughters. Tarek and Carmen were unsure of just how they had accomplished such a feat when the pair stumbled over and collapsed unscathed upon their bedrolls. "Thank the gods that I'm an elf," Tarek thought to himself. And with episode 15, we'll begin with the chapter titled Bandits on page 167. Thank you all for listening, and as always, remember to read Kerr's Rage, part 1 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga, and all of the following books by me. Thank you and have a great night.